And that's why I brought on today somebody who I think has some thoughtful perspectives on the future direction of our country, of our conservative movement, and on this question of nationalism and national identity. Somebody I've been fascinated by for a long time and have interacted with on social media, but for the first time, we're having at least live form conversation in the offline sense of it. It's Ann Coulter. So, Ann, thanks for coming on, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Me too. Thanks for having me. That was a fantastic opening monologue. I too am a fan of yours. I'm going to make a point of disagreeing with you so that it will be fun. You are so bright and articulate, and I guess I can call you articulate since you're not an American Black. Can't say that about them. That's derogatory. And that was a great opening segment. Lots of things to talk about there. Oh, and I agreed with many, many things you said during, in fact, probably more than most other candidates when you were running for president. But I still would not have voted for you because you're an Indian. We'll get back to that.
And that's why I brought on today somebody who I think has some thoughtful perspectives on the future direction of our country.
He sat in his face and told him, I would not have voted for you because you're an Indian. And where do we even go from there? Where do we even go from, right, Mike V? Wow. Where do we even go from there? This is getting worse and worse and worse. And Stevie Wonder's Higher Ground. He says, what do you tell you? Sleepers, stop sleeping. I mean, come on. This is crazy. They have really, really taken over and have come out of the, come down from the mountains, pull the sheets from over their heads. This is who we are. It's crazy. I'll tell you what else is crazy. So we try to bring you news, and different fresh perspectives. There's only one perspective that you can derive from this following bit of information. Chris sent me a thing on this last night through IG. When Donald Trump was in office, we come to find out, according to a congressional investigation, that he basically was selling the presidency, selling information, selling whatever, and making money off the presidency, big time. To even toward even with non-allies, enemies. And now, the other night, he put it on the line again, no shame, met with these oil executives and did a quid pro quo. Give me $1 billion. I get back in the White House. I'm going to eliminate some laws to help you. They said they even they negotiated with him that they would craft some executive orders for him to actually do and sign. And they want him to dismantle parts of President Biden's green agenda and roll back pollution regulations that they say mess with their profits. And the executive said plainly they are preparing some highly specific requests, including those executive orders that they want him to sign for in exchange for $1 billion. This is all out in your face. from a guy who's been um, found guilty of defrauding um, insurance companies, uh, banks, and other financial institutions in New York. And the judge slapped a half a billion, nearly a $500 million uh, fine, if you will, fine, and ordered him to repay. And he's front running to be in the White House. Make it make sense. But this is the direction. You see Ann Coulter, Vivek sitting there just like the stone cold uh, idiot that he is, and allowing her to talk, to be as racist as she want to be. They are they have dismantled affirmative action. They have gotten rid of DE and I. Um, these last few years where these promises were made in 2020, we talk about it so much. They have, in a hurry, quick, fast, gotten rid of uh, DE and I and other programs. The Fearless Fund. Austin says that Ann Coulter's insult didn't even register with Vivek. And Power 96 says, to be honest, $1 billion is pennies on a dollar for BP, Shell, Exxon, and other companies. Trump needs the money for his legal bills. Exactly. And just imagine. So he put the price tag at $1 billion for each of them. So yes, he's got, as we said, a $500,000 judgment, a nearly $100 million, a separate nearly $100 million judgment in his sexual assault case that he lost twice. And any conviction in this particular case that he's involved in now, this criminal case, also comes with certain fines and of course the legal bills. And famously, Rudy Giuliani despite him still like the rest of the Kool-Aid drinkers still sticking close to Donald Trump, still complains that this guy never paid millions of dollars in legal bills, and Giuliani's claiming bankruptcy. He's claiming that he's totally broke, while Trump entertains these guys at his home in Florida. And again, to show you the privilege, just so you understand, this took place on Wednesday. Why did it take place on Wednesday? Why is that significant? Because during his criminal trial, if Power 96 was on trial, Mike V was on trial, if I was on trial, um, it would be Monday through Friday, every single day. But the judge in this case granted Trump Wednesdays off to do whatever he liked, to campaign, to go do plot more crimes down in Mar-a-Lago. Not not anybody else. And so when they say, "Oh, I don't know why they treated him like," he is being treated perhaps better than any criminal defendant in history. There's no question about it. There's ne Name me another criminal defendant. Find me another criminal defendant throughout the annals of American history that have been treated, judges chastising them like one of them, like a parent, but one of them parents who don't know what else to do, and it's too weak to really put the hammer down, as Bernie Mac say, hit him with into the white meat show. Um, he's like, "Oh, please stop making noise. Please stop cursing in court. Please stop going on social media talking about me and my clerk and the prosecution." This is the judge, really. And the judge is $1,000 fine for the $1,000. When them 9 to 5 working MAGA people paying those little bills, Trump don't care. These guys are foregoing paying their rent. and helping Trump pay his pay these little so-called fines. Oh, I'm gonna throw you in jail. I'm gonna take away your TV. That's all it's about. And you're gonna tell me that this guy, this is what people it's cringeworthy when folks say, "Oh, I just think it's crazy that they got this. He's a presidential candidate. He's a former president, and they're just doing this politically." No, they're not. First of all, Democrats don't have the heart to retaliate politically against anybody. They've never had. They don't have the gumption. You know what I really want to say. That's first and foremost. Biden is 81 years old. He forgot the last insult Trump did. If he didn't do it in the last week, Biden don't remember. I mean, come on. The Democrats, it's amazing to me that the president and his campaign have more vociferously been going after Trump and in some cases making fun of his trials. It's still not showing a whole lot of, taking it. If it was if the shoe was on the other foot, believe me, look at the Hunter Biden situation. Look how they have played that up, the Republicans have. If the shoe was on the other foot, if Biden was the one on trial, they would be killing him. They would set up at the courthouse. The Republicans, they would have people set up at the courthouse getting footage, making commercials, campaign commercials every single day. This is the guy you want. This is this is the this guy. He's in criminal court. He's Bob. Whatever. They would come and they would come up. Trump would come up with some great slogans. Austin says Trump's criminal white privilege is paying off, and we talked to folks as you saw yesterday. There's one guy. He wasn't the only guy, but people just they'll tell you, "Oh, I didn't know that was going on. I didn't know that this guy um, committed business fraud." Power 96, the judge is blowing hot air. Trump has broke the gag order 9 or 10 times. It's 10 times by the judge's count, but probably 200 times by the accurate count, and one time in the judge's face. Absolutely. Now that he says that's white privilege, ask Stephen A. Smith, can blacks relate to that? And that's my point, Power 96. Oh, always hitting a home run. Always hitting a home run. Now he's selling openly saying, give me $1 billion and I will craft laws for you to help your business. I will exonerate or see to it that you're not in any way in any type of criminal liability or even a civil liability situation. He's selling the presidency in your face. He's selling the presidency. How do you have somebody so compromised with their finger on the nuclear codes? How is that possible? With America's, how does he get a security clearance? First and foremost, that is the biggest thing. Here's a guy that how does he get a security clearance? It takes a whole lot, even for the high-ranking military guys, to get certain clearances. This guy would have a president has all clearances. But again, here's a guy that's been found responsible for sexual assault twice. A guy who's bragged about sexual assault. A guy who CFO is doing prison time at because according to trial testimony, Trump ordered him to do X, Y, and Z with play fast and loose with the books. And the judge found he himself, and the judge used the words massive business fraud. How do you give him ultimate security clearance? Yeah, it might be Stephen A. Smith wants to be the next Sean Spicer. Perhaps so. Maybe that's Stephen A's next role once ESPN finally gets rid of him. And how about this? So, and so this is all of this is, it's not necessarily Trump inspired, the Confederate stuff, but it's certainly aided and abetted by what Trump has done, has inspired in the last, oh, 8 years or so, or more, when he started attacking Obama's birth, where he was born, this whole birther movement. But the school board in Shenandoah County, Virginia, just approved early this morning, and it's not even 8 o'clock. This is this is the thing. Remember, I said about that Stevie Wonder song, "Higher Ground." Stop sleeping. These conservatives, these Republican conservatives, they don't sleep. They approved a proposal to restore the names of Confederate military leaders to two public schools there in Virginia. The measure passed by a 5-1 vote. It reverses a 2020 board decision to change the names of the schools that had been linked to Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee, and Turner Ashby. In case you don't know who they are the three men who led the pro slavery Southern states during the Civil War. Mountain View High School will go back to the name Stonewall Jackson High School. Honey Run Elementary School will go back to the name Ashby Lee Elementary School. And this was, again, I keep talking about this, that whole thing with George Floyd, after he lost his life. That was a moment with all of the protests and that was a moment. It wasn't a movement. I said it then. I keep saying it because it's true. Because the board stripped their names after all these protests erupted because of the police killing of George Floyd. And supposedly it fueled a national racial reckoning. It did for 5 seconds. The calls for racial justice and equity inspired communities to remove Confederate symbolism and statues of Confederate generals. And we never, how do you forget the young lady, somebody say her name, that climbed the pole up down south and pulled down the Confederate flag? And how for a hot moment, she was the hot topic. But down in Virginia, Shenandoah County, the conservative group Coalition for Better Schools. Let that sink in. And so Power 96 again. Those conservatives will tell us, he says, to get over slavery while they honor the enslavers. And so they're reinstating the names of Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee, and this Ashby fella. And this is the statement that they put out early this morning. That, like I said, they don't sleep. They say, we believe that revisiting this decision is essential to honor our community's heritage and respect the wishes of the majority. So that's where that's where it's at. Um, you gotta wake up. This world is dying a very uh painful death. Mike V says, Interesting that Germany did not leave any artifacts of the Nazi regime to this day, and the flag is banned there, so they fly the Confederate flag in Germany. It's just too much. It's too much. I'm getting tired. I'm ready to throw in the towel. I got to get out to Louisiana. I got to go hang out with Power 96 because I'm getting tired. Power 96. This stuff is killing us. It really is killing us. Ohio's top lawyer has advised the state's public universities, and here's another thing. Here's another thing. Um, that a law written to deter KKK demonstrations could be used to impose felony charges on students who wear face coverings while protesting the war in Gaza. In a letter he sent this week, after weeks and weeks of pro-Palestinian campus protests around the nation, conservative attorney General Dave Yost advised the presidents of Ohio's 34 public four-year universities, which his office represents. He advised them to forewarn students about the 1953 law. He says, in our society, there are a few more significant career records than a felony charge. I'm glad he said that out loud because they try to pin every chance they get. They try to hit a person of color with a felony charge. Muriel Bowser, we got to get Muriel Bowser on this program. You know, I don't. People say, "Why are you attacking Muriel?" I'm not attacking her. I'm just bringing up facts that people in her community, her real constituents, if she understands that they are her real constituents, is, um, she wants she is now given the green light to just jail black kids and Hispanic kids, kids of color. But this Ohio uh, Attorney General says, I write to you today to inform your student bodies of an Ohio law that, in the context of some behavior during the recent pro Palestinian protests, could have that effect. And that law is contained in a single sentence. It says, no person shall unite with two or more others to commit a misdemeanor while wearing white caps, masks, or other disguise. Violating the anti disguise law is punishable by a fourth degree felony and up to $5,000 in fines and 5 years of community control. Um, yeah, Takia Thompson is the name of the black woman who pulled down that Confederate statue. She was 22 years old at the time. Mike V says, if the face coverings are N95 masks, how do you explain that then? And so that's the thing. So Mike, believe it. If you, me, or Power 96 is wearing an N95 mask, they're gonna say that it's breaking the law. It depends on who's wearing it. That's all I'm saying. And it's brought out too. And so some of the pushback is just that, Mike V. It's so interesting that you say that because not all uh put on masks to hide their identity. Somewhere that it's a religious thing or the medical masks to prevent exposure to COVID. And some even put on face coverings to as a political statement regarding the coronavirus's ongoing impacts. But this Attorney General Yost said that students should protest, quote, within the bounds of the law. And he says they should not use the First Amendment as a sword against fellow students and own their advocacy and avoid wearing masks. I see Yost took his mask off. That hood, he took the hood off, right? Good grief. And all this against the backdrop. Again, we've talked so much also about um, the damages that we talk about reparations and the damages that we still incur because of the transatlantic slave trade. Mike V says the Patriot Front had face coverings, hopped out of U-Haul trucks last year and harassed black folks in Philly and Boston and New York, and no one did anything. But we talk about the lasting effects of the transatlantic slave trade. And the American Cancer Society has decided to embark on an unprecedented initiative that will span 20 states, including DC, Maryland, and Virginia, where they will investigate the troubling disparities in cancer survival rates among Black women. And here's the thing, despite overall declines in cancer deaths, Black women continue to face disproportionately high mortality rates. Every time we talk about people of color, it seems that word disproportionate has to be used. So the American Cancer Society has unveiled a new Voices of Black Women study and website to go along with it. Um, Dr. Lauren McCullough, who's the co-principal investigator and visiting scientific director at the American Cancer Society, said while cancer deaths have declined, Black women maintain a high death rate. With few exceptions, Black women are more likely to be diagnosed with late-stage cancer, aggressive tumor types, and have higher cancer-specific mortality rates than other women. And Dr. McCullough said that this disparity is especially pronounced in breast cancer, where Black women face a 40% higher mortality rate than white women, despite having a lower rate of diagnosis by 4%. Moreover, Black women are 60% more likely than white women to succumb to cervical cancer and nearly twice as likely to die from endometrial cancer. So the key, one of the keys anyway, here is that very late diagnosis. For some reason, American medicine, American medical folks seem to, in many cases, uh, quickly diagnose a white woman, whereas when it comes to Black women, they don't diagnose them until it's almost too late, fourth stage. And this is not hyperbole. It's not me saying it. This is according to the American Cancer Society. Um, Mike V says, I wonder how much of an impact those relaxers and other powder products contribute to Black women's cancer rates. Yeah, there's lawsuits about that. There's class action lawsuits about that. But the Voices of Black Women study seeks to enroll more than 100,000 Black women between the ages of 25 and 55, which would make it the most significant endeavor ever in the United States. In order to participate, you must be at this point cancer free, and the American Cancer Society will track you for 30 years to examine the impact of medical history, lifestyle factors, and experience of racism on cancer risks and mortality. You also have to be, you have to live in one of the 20 states or Washington. And you can see the list on the Black Voices website of the states involved. Um, but they picked those 20 states and Washington because the American Cancer Society found that more than 90% of the U.S. population of Black women ages 25 to 55 are in those particular areas. They say they want to confront historical injustices in medical research. And we know that that's often excluded or exploited Black participants. Well, I mean, Tuskegee, Henrietta Lacks cell. And we can go on and on, right? But those are the biggies. And again, like I said, this crazy world, this crazy world is definitely on its last legs. Now you got this story out of Minneapolis, which is just so um, unfathomable. A little girl, kindergarten, is in the hospital after a classmate allegedly poisoned her, gave her some poisonous candy. Rachel Hodges says that her daughter, beautiful young girl in the picture there, Dakaya, was shaken and having trouble walking and acting bizarrely this week. And officials from the Nellie Stone Johnson Elementary School called Hodges to say that Dakaya had thrown up and had what looked like seizures. She didn't know who I was, her mother said. She didn't know my mom. She has a twin, and she didn't know her twin, who happens to be a boy. She said after emergency room doctors told her it wasn't a seizure, the episodes of odd behavior continued on and off. She says they include hallucinations and mood changes. I've never even seen a child act that way, the mother says. And it's just sad because she's scared of me and I'm her mom. The guy said a girl in her class gave her what she said was candy, but she pranked me, the Kaya said. After I ate them, she said, ha, just kidding. They're poisonous candies. My body was hurting, and yeah, it was scary. She described what she ate as colored pills. The police looked in her eyes. They seen that she was dilated, her mother said. Her eyes were crossed and bugged really big, and they knew she had to have ingested something she shouldn't have. Wow. Minneapolis police said they had referred the case to Child Protective Services. And the Minneapolis Police Department will continue to partner with the Child Protective Services as the case moves forward. The family is currently waiting on blood tests to hopefully identify what that other child gave to Kaya. Unbelievable. Mike V is wondering, is it cannabis infused brownies? He said it was a candy. And the belief is that the other, you hate to refer to a kindergartner as a perpetrator, but the other individual, the perpetrator, if you will, for lack of a better term, gave her what appeared to be candy. And so it could be, the speculation is that perhaps she got into somebody's pill jar and and she knew what she was. The individual knew what they were doing, according to Dakaya, because she told her she poisoned her. You know how it is in kindergarten. The offers another kid candy. They got 99% of the time they're gonna take it. But what 5-year-old thinks of poisoning another 5-year-old or anything? What are they doing at home? What are they doing at home? It's all this stuff. It comes down to why news can be so frustrating. It can be so frustrating. Um, I was talking with someone who I respect a great deal, and we were talking about the news business, and I was saying, he was saying how it's just so much, and I said, what's interesting is um, it's so much that doesn't get reported. That's even more scary than the things that do get reported. And that's why I get when Dr. Nicole says, "Oh, you were talking about Trump, so I had to walk away for a little while." Because it's a dominating thing. Is it the most important thing? To some it is. Who wins the election. But then you're burying this wall to wall coverage when really this guy shouldn't even be in the race. And in all actuality, look, at 81 years old, President Biden shouldn't be in the race either. And I get it. I get it. What he says about age and experience, and we don't want to get into a whole ageism thing. It's not right. It's not fair. Particularly as they're trying to the conservative folks, the Republican folks are trying to get rid of Social Security and other um, these other things that help the elderly and seniors. So the president, I mean, not that he would be affected, but at the same time, you don't want to set a precedent with ageism, right? But this stuff, there's so much other stuff like this little I say little, but this topic that we just talked about with the young kindergartner in Minneapolis. It gets that stuff gets buried because you got a stark raving maniac running for president who is threatening to upend not just the world for black folks and Hispanic folks, but folks the world over. Like I said yesterday, Greer and I talked to these two guys from Norway yesterday, a country that he's favorable, Trump is favorable to as far as his immigration policy, and they were incredulous. They pretty much said Americans. I mean, they didn't say this, but you can derive from it that Americans are just silly. It's stupid. How do you allow this to happen? Is what they were saying. And then they were so. One of the guys, he exaggerated a bit, but he's like, "You got billions of people voting for him. It's not billions, but you know, one one vote seems like a billion when it comes to somebody like that." And then you got others. We had another guy who was talking about the lesser of two evils, but that's something because I heard that a lot. That's one recurring theme in U.S. presidential elections, at least in my lifetime. And Cedric Richmond, who Democrat, works on the Biden campaign, he was very, very um, forceful in saying this is not about the lesser of two evils. You got one evil here, but you get why someone from a foreign country, like I said, when we was overseas earlier this year, two different countries the people in two different countries said the same thing that the guy in Norway was saying. The guy from Norway was saying, "What's wrong with you people? How could this guy be? How could that possibly be? Aren't you guys the United States of America? America has never been united, not since slavery. They were united in that. Yeah, Lincoln did the uh, Emancipation Proclamation because he didn't want to lose to the South. Isn't that interesting? Let me get some black bodies so I don't lose. It's the same thing with everything else. You want to win, you get some black folks. It's amazing with all of the. I mean, adversity is really understating what people of color in this country have had to endure for centuries. It's understating it. Um, but it's amazing that what we've been able to accomplish. I mean, it's like climbing a slippery slope, a huge hill, Mount Everest, while people are constantly dumping a ton of snow down as you try to go up. That's what it's like here for people of color in this country, and has always been that way. And yet we continue to climb toward the top. We continue to climb, fall back a couple of notches because of, not because of our own doing, sometimes because of our own doing. Doesn't help, but mostly because of what they continue to do, the obstacles, the moving of the goalposts constantly, and all the other things they put. That's why it's important. So when you have like an institution, 197-year institution like the Black press, and those who work in the Black press, see, we can't just talk the talk. And I'm talking about the powers that be. When you see you got young, excited, talented Black folks doing this work, you do whatever you can to support them, to make sure that they continue to be in a position that they don't have to go to uh, mainstream media or somewhere else to try and make ends meet. You support them because what you went through, you seniors, you elders of this institution, it seems to me that you'd want it to be less stress for the younger ones. You want to make a way, as my man Sheik says, make a way or find a way. We have to be better. I see where the Griot, Black owned, of course, is cutting back on its staff because Byron doesn't want to pay. Billionaire Byron doesn't want to pay. I mean, that's none of my business, they would say probably, but I'm just bringing you the facts. You got this. This guy, he can cultivate all the Black talent he wants. And why not? Why he should. You'll get it back, Byron. You will never want for anything, Byron Allen. I mean, you have the makings, you had the makings of a powerhouse. Same thing here. We have the makings. We've always had it of a powerhouse. But we talk the talk. Let's walk the walk. Dre and I are at this every day. And when we're not on air, we're off air at this. And then we're not the only ones. I look at what Nielle is doing at her thing there in the Black. Ebony McMorris, what she's doing. Erica Washington, others, of course, Roland Martin. Imagine all that talent together. That's all I got to say. It's Mental Health Awareness Month, and the Biden-Harris administration is announcing new actions to increase access to school-based mental health services, including nearly doubling investments in the U.S. Department of Education's school-based mental health services and mental health service professionals grant programs in the current fiscal year. They're also making additional investments through the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act to improve the mental health and well-being of students and educators, and offering a new mental health and well-being trainings and resources for schools and educators. The administration, uh, education secretary, I should say, Miguel Cardona, he says that the announcement affirms that the administration's continued commitment to tackling our youth mental health crisis. We know students are more likely to access mental health support if it's offered in schools. By nearly doubling funds this year for school based mental health professionals, releasing additional funds to help advance a variety of mental health strategies, and providing additional training and resources, we are raising the bar for student well being across the country. Of course, the nation's schools serve as a critical access point to mental health services that could otherwise be out of reach for students. And again, earlier we talked about the fact that they are going to rename schools in Virginia after Confederate generals. That all that plays into the biggest the one of the biggest factors in mental health is racism. Mike V says, I like the idea of students having a few PTO days for mental health. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so stressful. I'm so glad. I'm so glad I'm not going to school today. But at the same time, I still have two school age children. One who has one more year left, and I go to bed every night and I pray that when I wake up, it'll be the next year, so she could be done. I look forward to both the last two finishing school. School is you can't. There's not too many things more stressful than going to school today. It's not like it was when me, Power 96, Mike V, David Youngblood, Dr. Nicole, when we were growing up. Let me tell you, when I was growing up, I had the privilege of having black teachers. I had a couple of white teachers who Miss Green and uh, um, Miss Kent, fabulous teachers. But the biggest impact for me were my black teachers, particularly is when I think about sixth grade, Mr. Watson. What an influence. And the one thing I remember so well, I remember my elementary school teachers more than I remember a college professor or a high school teacher. But one of the things with Mr. Watson, his name was George Watson, and he would be perfect today for young ones and for everyone because he saw all of what we see now. He articulated it back, and I'm going back, and so I'm gonna just tell you, I'm talking 1980, 1980, and this fabulous, phenomenal educator talked about white supremacy in 1980. He talked about the Confederacy and white nationalism in 1980. Now, as a sixth grader, 12 years old, 11 years old, um, some of that stuff, okay, you get it, but you don't really get it. And he talked about a time where there would be somebody like a Donald Trump who would captivate half this country. And of course, he didn't name Trump by name. I mean, we in New York, we knew Donald Trump then, but we didn't know Donald Trump. Um, we knew he was racist, but it was like, so is every other businessman in New York. But this man talked about sitting up straight, which I still don't do. Holding your head up, being accountable, he talked about, and being strong. He was from Jamaica actually. He would have slogans up in the classroom, but not your ordinary slogans. And one of them I'll always remember because he didn't just have it up, but he would say it. If ever you got out of line and you challenged him, um, I will die with my boots on, he says. And this what he was trying to instill in all of us. Y- Die on your feet. Don't live on your knees. And he was trying to, you have all these strikes against you. What do you mean, Mr. Watson? We have strikes against us. What do we do wrong? You were born black in America. That's what he would say. You were born black in America. So you start off in the hole, behind the 8 ball. Get it together. You have to be better. You got a 95 on the test. You got to be better. Mr. Watson's a 95. And he calls by our last names. Brown, Boyd. I mean, he would, and then he'd do this. And you just knew he was gonna break something down for you, if not break you down. But here's why you could have done better than that 95. He didn't just say you could do better. Here's why you could have done better than the 95. And when he explained it, you're like, okay. And the great thing about it wasn't great back then, but if you came back with another 95, that means you didn't listen to him. Now you're in real trouble. Now he's gonna give you extra work. If you didn't come back with 100, or at least a 98, 99, he was not going. I mean, this guy was what we need today. What we don't have in the education field. We don't have, first of all, teachers are disgruntled, rightfully so. This enchanted, rightfully so. But we don't have teachers of color. I was so happy. Because my wife and I go to our parents teachers meetings all the time. When we went the beginning of this school year, and they were actually one of my daughters, or both of them, I think, teaching Black history. And not only that, something that Mr. Watson talked about, financial literacy. And my girls love it. They love it. My 17-year-old went out and did something that I did when I was her age. And actually, it was a couple of years before her, but um, she got a job at the baseball stadium. She was so thrilled about it. And I said, Paris, you know what? My first real job was at a baseball stadium. But they teach financial literacy, and that has been amazing. But they don't do that in most places. And before we go today, gotta leave you with this. So, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has provided a lot of he's provided a lot of talking points, if you will, and even some unintentional comedy, I'd suggest. But the latest is really, and it's in the news a lot now, the last few days. But he said that a worm ate part of his brain. He said it happened in 2012. And he said literal brain worms. And Joy Henry, I love Joy Reid. Maybe if he was vaccinated, he wouldn't have been susceptible to literal brain worms. Just a thought. And she says, either way, this both explains a lot and makes it doubly clear why his own family says he should be nowhere near the presidency.
I just ask you guys one more thing. The New York Times, and this has nothing to do with, well, it has to do with the presidential election, has just come out with this extraordinary, bizarre article on RFK. And they're reporting that doctors, in a deposition, that RFK said doctors found a worm in his brain that had eaten part of his brain and then died there. I mean, you laugh, but I mean, what might this mean? I mean, what might this mean to an election, to hearing that he said this in a deposition?
It probably means, and one of the things that I tell my clients all the time is try not to go into depositions high. That's usually what I would suggest. And that would be my words of wisdom. I have political issues with RFK, but this is just a little bit beyond my pale of expertise.
I mean, if that's true, if a worm ate his brain, which is mind-blowing on so many levels. I mean, everybody's talking about the cognitive, capabilities of. I just asked you guys one more thing.
I love the way they handled that because, there are some, and the way that, and some entities are covering it like it's like this huge story or whatever, and it's like he's What's that? Bakari Seller said that I tell my clients not to go into the depositions high. I mean, come on. That as Mike V says, his daughter endorsed President Biden. His whole family endorsed President Biden last month. And I think it was his cousin who it was a cousin anyway, who just the other day was making fun of this situation too and saying, look, he he's Kennedy by name now at this point. They're doing the whole disowning thing on RFK Jr. It is interesting. But you know what's interesting? I will say this. I've had conversations with RFK Jr. And they've been really good conversations. He's a really good conversationalist. He really is. We've had several conversations with him. And you know, he interesting guy. He's an interesting guy. As Power 96 says, 5 cans short of a 6-pack. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But you just never know. Never know what goes through folks' mind. And yeah, I believe that he took his conspiracy stuff way too far. Where to the point where even those who might have been amenable to supporting him, like I just can't, Junior, I can't. But now to make matters worse, he's linked up with all of the MAGA folks now, and um, he even hired just the other day not only an election denier, but somebody who attacked the Capitol on January 6th. So his ability to even open his mouth at this point it's been compromised greatly. So and that's unfortunate for him. His elevator never left the basement. That's what Power 96 says. His elevator never left the basement. Well, hopefully everybody will have a good and safe weekend, and wherever you are, there should be a Black-owned newspaper, website, or however you consume your news. Support the Black press. Support your local Black owned and operated newspaper. Not Black targeted now, but Black owned. Okay? Make it a point to do that this weekend, and do so. Start off by going to our YouTube page, the Let It Be Known's YouTube page, and hit subscribe and tell everybody about it, and tell them that you will give them $1.10 if they subscribe as well. Have a great weekend, and we will see you on Monday.